Just make sure that the stream is working properly. Let's check the chat. Hello, everyone. Okay. Okay. See if that's working. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, for the beginning of the video, we're going to start with some basic editor menu. We're going to start with some basic stuff just for those users who are new to Pro and how to use the tool. So we're going to first start with how to create a new map. Now there's this option right here for when you're in the My Map section, but on any other tab, you will also see that there is a create new map here as well. So you're going to go click create new map. And today we're going to be making a Parchment world map, only instead of a world, we're going to go with a Parchment regional map. Just going to do a small region instead of the whole map. I have a stream already on the channel that specifically geared towards world maps. So go ahead and check that out. So you're going to go ahead and click Parchment world. You're going to choose the style and we're going to pick with the basic landscape shape. Go ahead and create map. All right, so this is the editor that you have right here. And we're just going to go ahead and verify real quick. Works perfect. All right. So when you first open up the map, this is what you're going to see. And it's going to take you straight to the mask options. Now there's a reason for that. It's because that is generally where you start when you create a new map. You want to create your landmass. So the first step, and I'm going to go ahead and write down these steps. One is going to be creating landmasses. Make sure people can see it, so we'll make it a darker color. Oops, I meant this one. So your first step is to create land masses, and you're going to do that with this sculpt tool right here. And there's going to be an add and a subtract mode. The add mode and the subtract mode. These are basically two paintable layers. The subtract mode is at the bottom, and that's going to be your basic layer when you start on your canvas. And there's also an add mode, and it creates a second paintable layer on top of the background which you can paint. So if the FG is selected, this texture will only show up here. If it's on such as the BG, it will go behind it on that other layer. So let's go ahead and just go to our undo options, click initial state to go back. Everything will be gone, including my landmass section there. You just go back to your history. There you go. And we'll update it one more. Oops. Okay. Now when creating your landmasses, there are two options that you can go about. Personally, I like to do with a large globular shape. So you're going to start with your circle shape, or you can use your edgy shape. It depends whichever your preference is. And you're just going to make one globular shape like this. Really big. Don't worry about any kind of details. You're just making one singular shape. And then you're going to go over with a couple passes with the subtract mode and a smaller brush size and start carving out some distinguishing land features like horns and capes or a bay, anything like that. Let's zoom out a little bit so I can get a better look at the canvas. You can use your mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and I absolutely recommend that you do that. You can also pan by holding down the space bar when moving your mouse. Super important you do that. So once you have your basic shape, we're also going to go ahead and change some of the advanced settings. So you go to the brush or the mask tool, click advanced settings, and we're going to turn all these effects off. That's the ripples and everything, because we don't need them quite yet. Or if you still want them, you can just get rid of everything but the stroke. So at least you can see the outline that's around it and get rid of those inner shadows like that. Now after you've created that shape, you're going to switch over to the subtract mode, and you're going to drop your brush down just a little bit. we're going to go along the edge here and just kind of create some interesting shapes. You'll do a couple passes like this. We'll just do the first pass. Think of stone as a sculptor, and you're sculpting off pieces of the stone, taking it off. And we might add or subtract more later, just depends. Now, I'm not going to make a super detailed parchment map, and the objective of the video is to kind of teach you the skills that you need to make a map as quickly as possible. The video length will not reflect how long the map actually takes, because I will also be answering questions and doing some extra things and showcasing some tools. So the length of the video will not reflect how long the map will take. Let's go ahead and pan and move over. And so you see you have some shapes here, and we'll carve out some more. We're going to drop the size down one more to something even smaller. And I kind of want to shape out this horn. Just adding here and there. Okay. Make sure you miss this. That's great when you have this outline is selected. You might accidentally miss a spot. This kind of shows it. So it's kind of nice to have that. Outline is helpful. So kind of maybe just at least have that effect on when you're building your landmass shapes. And it's always nice too to create a couple islands as well. So like you take off maybe a piece like this, and there's an island there. You can take off another piece and put an island there. A chain of islands is called an archipelago. So we can maybe make a couple of those. Let's say right here, we'll break off one island, break off another one right here, and maybe another one right here. Maybe create some inlets. So far, so good. We'll just add a couple more things. Maybe even make some of this a second landmass. So let's cut it up like this. This will be interesting. Be bold, try things. If you don't like it, you can always undo it with the history over here in this option. Instead of continuously pressing the undo button, instead open up this and then go through your change history. That's so much easier than just clicking this 5 times to get rid of the 5 things that you did. So that's super important. Use the change history. We'll continue this. It's kind of like a straight. All right, I'm also going to check the stream chat, so just one moment, just to verify. Excellent. All right, things are going well. Wonderful. Okay, let's just continue. Once you feel that you're satisfied with your basic shapes, then it's time to start applying stamps. Now, before we do that, actually, let's quickly go over one other step, and this is something that applies to both regional and world maps, and that is you might want to decide on your map how many biomes that you have, and usually you do that through like texture or using texture or color to denote certain areas that you want to be a certain biome. So let's actually do that first. So from after landmasses, we go to step 2, and we go to basically like a labeling with textures, and maybe even using some text or the path tool to decide where I might want things to be. So right here we have this island right here, and it's mostly just going to be grass, maybe some mountains. It doesn't have to be anything special. This is really depending on which style you want to go forward. with the parchment style, you don't have to add any texturing at all. You could just apply a stamp like a mountain, and this style has what's called a clipping masks. And so whatever the texture is on the foreground, that's this landmass here, is also going to be on the stamp. So no matter where I put it, that's going to be active. Now if you want to turn that clipping mask off, if you go over to the left panel under stamp options, you'll see a little toggle that says clipping mask, and if you click that, you'll notice that the clipping mask gets turned off. So for keeping the video short, let's actually not apply textures, and let's just kind of keep it basic. So this is going to be the basic color, and all the stamps, mostly all the stamps, have clipping masks, some don't. Let's delete that. So let's not worry about biome, since I'm not going to do any extra texturing. Let's just stick with just adding stamps, and we'll save texturing for another video. So now we're going to go and add stamps. Now when I add stamps, there should be an order of what stamps come first. And so when you're adding your stamps, you want to first think about your landscape, like your terrain. I like to start with mountains, and the reason why I like to start with mountains is because they work great as a scale guide. You can go ahead and scale your trees, your POIs, that's points of interest, and everything else up against that mountain. So we had the mountains before. Now mountains are what's called a stamp set. That means there's multiple in a set right here, and you're going to see some options. You're going to see random stamps. So this just means that these stamps are going to be randomized when you select them. And there's this other option that rotates random rotation, but since they're mountains, we don't need to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a pass of mountains. And how you decide where you want mountains really depends on how realistic your map to be. You can draw fault lines where land masses have collided and created mountains. So that's up to you. I'm not going to do that here because that would take a long time to kind of demo out. So basically, when I'm applying my mountains here, I'm looking for sections that are going to be wide enough for a mountain range to go through, so there's space on the sides, so that there's room to put POIs and roads and forests. Now when you go ahead and use a stamp set, you just click, hold, and then you drag. And I like to make kind of more like S shapes. So you're going to go like this. Think of like a meandering river when you go like that. And you also want to double check to make sure that there's no stamp overlapping where the ocean is. This stamp right here, I'm going to go ahead and use the arrow keys because that gives me exact pixel movement, and just use the arrow keys to push them off. And you've added your mountain. And I'm also going to make sure that there's some that are overlapping. At least the peaks can overlap. That's okay. You don't want the base of the mountain going off, but the peak is okay. And that's good because that gives you a sense of dimension. So that's another pro tip. Whenever you're putting stamps together on the map, make sure you have some that are overlapping each other. So we have our first mountain chain. We're going to go ahead and make other mountain chains as well throughout the whole map. And you can use the same mountain or different ones. Let's just go and open up the catalog. I'm going to use a shortcut key and press F and open the catalog. And the catalog is going to load up. You're going to see some options on the left. It's going to have some filter toggles, and you're also going to see all the styles and packs. Now whatever shows up here in the catalog is going to be whatever's selected right here. So if the Parchment World is selected, all these packs are going to be selected. Okay? If you want to open up stamps from other styles, you'll have to click this toggle. And you're going to have to also wait a moment for that to load. You can also search all styles by clicking this toggle right here. And there's an expand all toggle that lets you see all the stamps within a stamp set. And that's particularly useful if you're looking for a particular stamp within a set that you want to use. I'm going to turn that off. I don't need that. I'm going to go ahead and just decide to pick a different mountain that I want to use besides the basic one. Like here's another one here. These are those large mountains. And the scale seems about right for here. And if not, we can also scale them down to be smaller if you don't like that. You can still scale them down so they're smaller. I kind of like that. remember what your scale is at. This is at 90, so that's pretty good. And we'll go ahead and pick that stamp again, these large ones. And I might drop the scale down just 10 points. And we're going to pick other locations to where you want the next range to be. We're going to go and look at this landmass, and there's a lot of open space here. So this is where the fun part of deciding where you want your landmass, where your mountain ranges to be. Stumbled over that one. Let's go ahead and make our S shape. You can single click in a couple too as well. Doesn't hurt to do that, just single click in one here and there. Okay, and since this is a regional map, there's not going to be very many biomes on this one. We're just going to have a couple. Switch back to this, go to 90, keep consistency. Not 90, okay. Then we'll go ahead and add just maybe 1 or 2 more ranges. We'll block off this landmass here, so let's put one here going down, across. Again, stick with those S shapes, those are really good. Make sure that when you're placing your mountains that they're all on the same layer. I'm putting mine on layer 1. This is your layer section. If you're not familiar with how layers work, these layers are only for objects. They have nothing to do with the BG and the FG. Those are only paintable layers. And there are 11 of these layers. That's going to be +5 to -5. That includes the 0. When you're doing your mountains and including your forests and your hills, once you start adding those stamps, you want to make sure that they're on the same layer so that the overlapping works out well. And we'll go ahead and explain that when I go ahead and add hills and forests. We're going to add one more mountain range. Let's see here. I want to add one, let's say up here. We're going to single click to overlap, and then maybe just a tiny one over here. Oh, actually, no, let's not do that. We'll get rid of that one. Okay. I think that's enough. These chains are good, and if they're too big or too small, you can change them accordingly. That's up to you on what exactly you're going for. Different people do different styles. If it's more realistic, then you're going to make things very, 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 very small. If you're going for something more cartoony and stylized, then larger might work better for you. So it's really up to you. Now, once you've created the main chains, then you want to go ahead and take that same mountain style, and I like to drop the size down a little bit. Let's go to 50, let's say, and just add little tiny mountains just here and there. Just single click them, don't worry about dragging. But mountains create little chains that kind of break off like this, and these small mountains work great for that. You can put a few back there. You can put some at the end of this chain. And you do the same thing with this one. Just select this, and we're going to go ahead and select 50. Enter. And we're going to make some chains, just little chains coming off. Maybe some overlap there, that's nice. You're kind of breaking up, this also kind of breaks up the monotony of the single-sized large mountains, because you would expect a lot of change, a lot of different sizes of mountains. When you look at a map, you're not expecting all the mountains to be the exact same size. Okay, and you do that to each mountain, and when you feel like it looks good, then you'll go ahead and add in some hills. Let's go ahead and do it to this one as well. Make sure I drop it down to 50. And you don't want to do it too much, because you also want room for your foothills. So just kind of a here and there thing, don't overdo it. We'll zoom out, we'll take a look. I do recommend, as a pro tip, that you save roughly around 100 changes or so. You don't have to, but that is safe. So if you're a Chrome user, you should know right now that Chrome has a limit of how many megabytes is going to be on a tab. So saving and refreshing is going to be clearing the history of your map and causing less probability of causing corrupt or old data. So make sure that after a certain number of changes you save. I usually go anywhere between 100 to 200. And not also do you save, that maybe after saving 3 or 4 times within, let's say, an hour period, that you refresh the page. So we won't do that yet. Instead, we'll just save, and we have to name the map. So we're going to call it Parchment Map, and we can rename it later if you wish. You click OK or press Enter, and it should save. Let's go ahead and check, make sure questions are doing good. Excellent. Okay. So we're still in our adding stamps process. We have our mountain ranges, and now we need to add some foothills. And we can even also select things as well to make them a little bit smaller. I also want to make sure that there's enough room for POIs and forests. So I am going to drop the size of everything just a little bit. Make sure there is room. Yeah, that still looks okay. Let's go ahead and add some hills now. Let's say that you're in the catalog, and the catalog has a long list of things. The Parchment style doesn't, but other styles do have lots. You can go into the search field and just type in hill, like this, and you'll see that there'll be some tags that show up. And I'm just going to choose these small hills. We're going to zoom in. We're going to use the scroll mouse wheel to do that. And I'm just going to do this to every single range, and in some areas I'm going to add more foothills than others. So add some foothills here, and you're going to notice that because it's at that layer 1, that when I add them at the tip, you're going to see it's behind it, but if I was to go more front, like this, it shows up in the front. So it's good to overlap. And you can even change the size of the hills if you want them to be some really tiny ones. You can hold down Shift and use your scroll mouse wheel to change the size of a stamp. So let's add a few small ones here and there. They're a bit hard to see, but I am doing this in 2K. Okay, let's go back. I'm going to click this stamp because there's stamp memory. If I click a stamp and then I go over to the stamp tool, you'll notice that the same stamp and the size and the rotation and the opacity will be the same. So that stamp memory, keep that in mind. It also works really well when you want to quickly select, have a certain stamp that you want to use again. Instead of searching through the catalog, you just have to click the stamp, then go over to the stamp tool, and then boom, there's that stamp that you need. That's so much quicker. Let's keep adding some hills. Some areas are going to have less foothills because I'm going to put more forests, because forests grow often at the base of mountains, because that's where those water sources at, those creeks, those rivers, that melting snow and that rainfall all contribute to the headwaters that start in the mountains. And we will go over rivers too. That's going to be in one of the steps. Some mountains here, okay, and I'll add some smaller ones to break that up. A couple here, a couple there. Okay, I'm going to put mostly forest there, so I don't want to add too much. There should be one more range. Nope, that's it. Okay. All right, so now that you've added your foothills, well, actually, let's go do what I said I was going to do, add some smaller ones here. Okay. Add some smaller ones. Okay. All right. 84 changes. Now, just a quick pro tip. You can quickly fit a map to your screen by clicking the Fit Screen, and you'll see the whole map is there. It's going to go ahead and stop against this right here. And if you're working and a tool gets in the way of your working, you can do the fit to resize, and you can also do the shortcut key to close certain tools. So if you press the B key, the brush tool is in the way of you brushing, just press the B key again and it will get out of your way. So it's as simple as that. I highly stress using shortcut keys. That's going to speed up your process. That's what's going to pump out those maps quicker for your campaigns. Okay? And if you don't know what the shortcut keys, make sure you go over every single tool and check the tooltip, and it will tell you what key it is. So again, I cannot stress enough, shortcut keys, those are going to speed up your process. Hardcore, okay? So now that you've added your hills, we're going to add forests, okay? And we're going to go into the catalog, and we're going to pick the trees that we want, and we're going to choose different trees for different areas. So we're going to zoom in, and we're going to take a look at how big the tree is, and we're going to try to scale it to a tree, and it depends on how realistic you want it to be. So usually this would be an extremely large tree. This seems slightly better, but it's so small and hard to see. So this is a matter of personal preference and where you want to go. I want them to be a little bit more visible, so I'm going to increase the size, and I'm just going to stick with a straight 70. I'm going to place one first and just kind of see how it looks. If you're satisfied with that, you can delete that tree or leave it as a point of reference. Now there are options on how you want to make your forest. There is a density brush here at the top. Now that is most likely going to cause a serious amount of lag on your machine if you have a slower machine or a slower internet speed. So I don't recommend using the density brush unless you have a machine that can handle it. And I'll go ahead and demo it for you so at least you can see how it works. You're going to see two important slider bars. These are going to be important concerning the density brush. You're going to see an area. Now that is you're going to see how much is going to be affected. That's your area. You can click X to go to the default. You're also going to see a density. Density is just how dense the stamp's going to be. And I'll go ahead and show that with the density, with the area up so you can see it. You will see a preview, so you're seeing how dense it is. We're going to go back to the default, which is going to be 100. And I'll go ahead and drop the area size down. And I will showcase to you what it looks like when you apply it. Make sure again it's at that layer 1 like this, because this is at layer 1 and these trees are going to interact with those mountains. So when I click and hold and drag, some trees will be behind mountains and some will be in front. Now you might not be satisfied with this. You're like, oh, I don't like how uniform that is. Well, you can go back and you can change some things. Let's just go back 1. And you can go back to your area and say you want them to be less dense, though I do recommend that when you're creating forests at the base of mountains, they are the most dense. So you're going to want very, very dense. But if you don't, you can drop the density down. I changed it to 56. Let's apply it, and you'll see that it's going to be a little bit more sparse, definitely not as dense. And we're going to undo that because that's not what I want to work with. But that's basically how that works. Now there is, in my mind, there's two ways of going about it. If you do have a strong machine, put your density up to 100 or higher. Make the brush area fairly small. And we're going to start with just this mountain part right here. You're going to go ahead, click, hold, drag, like this. Let's just say this is going to be a dense kind of forest part right here. And you don't like the way that there's very little transition between this negative space here because it just looks like a blob of trees, then I would recommend just going back to the default area of 1 and just clicking some random trees to kind of break up that globular look. I think it would be great if we added a request in our feature request channel on Discord for changing the way that that works. Maybe we could make it to where clusters of trees like this pop up instead of just individual. So that's something to look into in the future. So just adding these single clicks. And we're going to do this same thing probably for everything. Right now my machine is doing well. So we're going to go back and we're going to choose that same tree. We're going to change our density, go up just a little bit, change the area. Remember that preview was there. We're going to zoom out. I'm going to go ahead and create the next forests. This whole section right here I think would be a nice forest, and maybe even leave an open space to where there can be a POI, that's a point of interest. Leave that section open. You can put a POI there now. And we're going to also add in just some random forests as well. There's just a little small one right here. And I'll make sure to add some single clicks mountains there as well. And we'll add maybe a large forest here. And my computer is lagging a little bit, so I'm just going to do little sections of it, and then we'll come back with those single clicks to kind of break up that uniformity. And this whole area right here can be forests at the mountains, and then we'll add a little valley in between here. That'll be great for some interesting POIs. And we also probably want to change the tree type. So we can go back into the catalog and we can select a different tree type. There's this pine tree here. We've been using this first pine. There's a second pine. Let's try maybe this one instead. Looks like it might be a deciduous instead of a conifer. So let's click it. Let's make sure that we take a look. I'm going to go back to the original settings. I'm going to zoom in. Make sure that this tree is what I want it to be. Looks about the same size, so that should work out just fine. We're going to, again, bring up the density, bring up the area. And we're going to zoom out, take a good look, see what we want. I'm thinking a large deciduous forests here. This could be like an elf location. That'd be great. So let's go ahead and create some dense forests at the base of these mountains. Maybe even on the back side, or the front side, sorry. I see it's already lagging quite a bit. Create this large forest here. Maybe even connect these. So you can go in through here, walk through here. That looks good. Add a little section here. Okay, and we'll make sure to break up that uniformity with single click stamps of trees. And I'm seeing a lot of changes. So we're going to fit the screen, zoom out, take a look. We're going to save. This is my second save, so after my third save, I'll go ahead and refresh the page, so you'll have to bear with me and wait for that to refresh. Go ahead and zoom in, and we'll start working on those single clicks to break up this uniformity. And we'll go back to the defaults. And we're just going to add single clicks here and there. My computer's a little slow. All right, there we go. Okay. We'll make sure to put lots of POIs. It might be a little slow, so I might actually have to refresh the page. First, let's just keep adding here and there. So much better, not crazy as before, and we'll do it here in these sections, just here and there. Oops, that is a bit irregular looking. Okay, that worked fine. And we're going to do the same thing with these ones. This is a different tree, so we just have to select it. This process may seem slow, but it's going to go by much quicker once you understand the tool and how it works. There is no magic tricks to creating a map extremely fast in just a matter of minutes. Kind of a pipe dream. The best that you can do is try to familiarize yourself with the tool come up with a order of operation that makes your process go by the quickest. So that is what I'm going to try to provide with these steps. And you don't have to follow every step that I have. You can implement your own steps and change it as be. But when I make maps, these steps produce maps the quickest for me. So, and I'm hoping that the same order of operation will help you to make your maps very quickly. There's a lot of changes going on here. This is the prime time to save, and then go ahead and refresh the page. There's a lot of history on this map, and that's also going to cause some lag. So you save, wait till you're done saving, then click the refresh button to refresh. Okay, so let's go ahead and click the refresh button. Give that a moment to load the map, and then we're going to go over to the history, and I'll show you that there is no history in the map history, and that is going to be extremely helpful because that is going to cause less lag on your machine. So there is no perfect number of changes that you should save. It's just, for me, 1 to 200 works best. It's just a great way to avoid any kind of old data. So if you go up to your history right here, you'll notice that there's a little caution sign or a no smoking kind of looking symbol there. That simply means that there is no history. There's nothing to click undo or redo. And that's going to also free up space on the machine. So when I zoom into my map, I'm noticing immediately that it's not quite as laggy. So now once you have your forests nice and clean, and you have them the way you want them, we can work on to the next step of adding stamps. And that's going to be, for me, I like to add POIs, and we might add some more things. These areas might be plains, and we can add just a couple hills here and there, like maybe they're just or just hills. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and take some hills, and I'm going to choose the large ones instead. And let's just quickly make some small hilly areas where we're going to put some POIs on top of these hills. And there are some stamps within a set that you don't like. So you can go ahead and scroll through those, the ones that you like and you don't like. And I'm going to add some small hills there as well. These hills are technically massive, so we could size these down just a hair to where they're not so incredibly huge. And again, make sure you do that overlapping. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to copy and paste this. So big thing that's super important, Control C, Control V, absolutely copy and paste a lot. So I've copied and pasted that, and yeah, it's the same configuration, but you can just switch these stamps around. And now you didn't have to do all this single clicking and adding new stamps. All you had to do was copy, paste, and rearrange. I absolutely recommend using the Control C, Control V options. These are going to be a lifesaver. They're going to speed up your process. It's so much easier to copy and paste and just rearrange a configuration of stamps than going through the catalog, selecting through the stamps, and just laying them down again on the canvas. So always copy and paste. And we're also going to want to put some trees there as well. We're going to stick with our overlap method. You're going to put a couple in front, a couple in the back. You can even put some on top, and to do that you will have to go up a layer, because if I try to put a hill right here like this, it's going to show in the back. Now, real quick pro tip, the last stamp that you placed and you click over the selection, that stamp's going to be selected, but only after you've selected it, or clicked it. So I'll do it again. So you click this stamp right here. If I go to selection, that stamp's going to be selected. So let's select that stamp, and you're going to go up one layer. You're just going to click like that, and you're going to see that the tree is on top. And I'm going to select that tree so that it's still on that layer, layer 2, and put just a couple on the top. So it kind of gives it that natural feel. Trees grow on top of, around, above, everywhere. There you go, like that. Perfect. So you have some trees there. Let's zoom out. Let's take a look. That looks fine. That looks good. Okay, we're still adding stamps. And we might come back and do some final passes along here. Some of these edges look super sharp, but that's okay. We can save that for last. Let's just go ahead and add the stamps, and we'll do our final pass. I'm taking a look at everything, what might look good. Might even have to move some stamps up. I'm seeing a straight line right here, so to break that straight line, I'm going to move the stamps. You can even select individual stamps and move them around with the arrow keys if you want, or just select like this and move around. It's up to you. Okay, let's zoom out. Now we can start thinking about where some things are going to be. So this is a bit of a quandary when it comes to deciding POIs. You're also going to run into that scale question. What do you want your points of interest to be? Are they going to be just an icon, just a symbol? Are you going to try to make maybe a symbol that's going to have a couple buildings on it to represent a larger city? How do you want to proceed forward with making a point of interest? So that's a tough question. And so if you want to make a map quickly, then the quickest way is just to do very basic symbols and then to add a legend. So let's just do that. This is going to go by much quicker than trying to create each POI being unique and different. You're going to notice that there are some icons here, and there are two kinds, this one and this one. One of them has a clipping mask. That's going to be the second set. So if I was to place this stamp down like this, I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see it. Actually, I'm sorry, it must be the first set that has the clipping mask. Nope, I think it is. There it is. I see a clipping mask. So you'll see a clipping mask there. And you can, again, turn that off with the toggle. You're going to want to go through each symbol and decide for yourself which one is going to represent what. Like, is it going to represent a capital? Is it going to represent a city, a village, a temple, whatever? These symbols are the quickest, but you can go with various other symbols we have as well. You can go ahead and click Expand All. I'm going to click this toggle so I can see all of my options. You're going to scroll down and see a series of symbols. Now these are much more detailed than the simple symbols, so the smaller that you go down, the less detail you're going to see. So with this scale, maybe these symbols might work best. So we're going to decide for ourselves which ones are going to be a capital, which one's going to be a city, which one's going to be a village, a temple, or whatever. So I'm going to use this symbol right here to represent a capital, and I want to strategically decide where I want my capitals to be. So I'm going to take a look at this landmass here. I'm going to say, okay, I want a capital to be here on this little finger right here. That's a nice place to have it. It's going to go there. And then we're going to think about what maybe would work for a city. This stamp right here will work for a city, or whatever stamp that you decide. And I'm going to drop the size down a bit. And this one is conflicting a bit with this. So let's see here. I'm wondering if there's a clipping mask for that one. So there should be, unless I turned it off. Every single one of these should have a clipping mask. Some of them do not. Okay. All right, so we're going to place that symbol there. This is going to be our capital. And we're going to use this one to represent cities. So we can put some cities close to the capital. We'll put one there. And I'm going to put them, a lot of them, along the coastline, because you want your cities and your capitals and your villages to be near two really important things: food and water. The sea is the best place to get your food source, maybe not so much for water unless you're going to filter it. So rivers also work as a great thing, and we haven't added rivers yet, and we will, and we'll place some villages too once we've added those rivers. So let's just start with our cities first and our capitals. I'm going to put a city here, and I'm also going to put a city on top of the hill, so we might want to go up one layer, because I know that these hills, these mountains, and these trees are all on layer 1. So we'll put one on top of that hill. We'll even put one inside here. Well, actually, no. Let's leave the cities open. We'll put villages and towns in there. So let's go ahead and keep adding our towns. Let's add a city on top of that hill. That's a good place, defensible position. We'll put another one here. And we're going to go back and go ahead and put our capitals. I want to put an elf capital in maybe in the center here, or some kind of capital. It doesn't have to imply races. That's up to you. When you decide that you want to go with races, you can change the symbols to be what you want. There is more symbol options that you can choose from. Like here are, say, orc, human, or this is non-races, but there's dwarfs here. It's up to you on how you want to go about that. Also, there is some awesome symbols in the fantasy world as well, but we'll stick with parchment since that's the style we're working with. We've got a main capital down here, and we have a capital, let's say, up here. We'll put it in the center here. 2 capitals, 3 capitals, 1, 2 on this landmass, 1 on here, and we'll continue adding cities. Let's put 1 on this island. Put 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. We'll put 1 on this island. Okay, and then we're also going to add a village or town. I'm going to use this circular symbol, and I'll be sure to put this on a legend. And I'm going to put them pretty much in between towns, and we'll get to the path section later. So I'm going to put some villages or towns here, 1 here, and we're going to create a path that's going to go along them. These are going to be small. Put 1 here, along here. Place 1 here, 1 in here, 1 here. Scatter them about also in the main part of the landmass. We're going to connect all of these points of interest with paths, and we may or may not label them, so we'll decide on that later. Just make sure that we have village and strategic locations, 1 on top of this hill, 1 here. We'll put 1 on this hill by this mountain, 1 here, 1 in this nice little hill area, and 1 here. Now, I just want everyone to know real quickly that this stream is only going to last for 2 hours. So it's going to go to 12 p.m. PDT. If this map is not finished by that time, then we will go ahead and continue that on the next Monday of the next stream, which is going to be September 6th. And we'll go ahead and continue this map if it doesn't get finished. If we do finish this map in this stream, then we will go ahead and do a different one. So I just want to give you guys a heads up on that one. And let's kind of take a look at our locations. Say, okay, cool, we've placed them around. So far, so good. This looks good to me. I'm just making sure everything's where I want it to be. And next, we're going to go ahead and connect these locations. Well, actually, let's go ahead and add some temples. We want at least a couple stamps to be in our legend. We're probably going to put a legend here. And I'll make sure to put all those symbols in that legend. Let's add some random temples. And I think I'm going to put temples on top of hills, because those are great places to put temples. I'm going to put a couple of them. You want places for your players to explore. So we're going to put one next to here, and then all along these mountains and these hills I'll be putting some temples for people to explore. And we can even do this where you select these two items right here. I'm going to go ahead and group them. Pro tip, as soon as you group something, immediately label it. Immediately label it. That's going to be this right here, or you can go in this bar and click rename. I just go here, and I'm going to call this temple, so I know what that group is. This is particularly helpful because when you have tons and tons and tons and tons of different groups, you have to select this long list of groups to figure out which one is which. So labeling them immediately is extremely helpful, and when you go into your search, you can just click in temple and that group will show up. That way you can just select it immediately. That's so much quicker than trying to scroll through a list of groups, okay? Super, super important. And we're going to go ahead and stick with control C, Control V, you're going to copy and paste. So I'm going to put some that are going to be by the ocean. I think that would be kind of nice. And we're going to put some on some of the islands as well, because I think that's kind of nice. Just a random temple on an island. And we'll put, let's see here, we'll put a couple around here. And we can also decorate those as well by adding just a few stamps here and there. Make sure it's at layer 1. I selected the last stamp, so that should work. Just add some trees here and there. We'll add a couple here. You will go back on some of those steps, like adding trees and extra hills and stuff. You're probably going to go back a couple times, and that's okay. You don't have to add this level of detail. If you're just wanting to make a real quick map, you don't have to go through all these steps in the same level of detail that I'm going at. That's okay. It's just me personally. I like adding little details here and there. That's what makes the map good. But if you're a DM, I know that you're looking at your watch, you're looking at your clock, constantly thinking, I got to get this done in an hour and a half, 2 hours, tomorrow, whatever. So you don't have to go through with these steps with complete detail like I'm doing. So making a map actually goes much quicker than the way I'm doing it because I'm adding more details. So let's zoom out and let's go ahead and save. I've done quite a few changes there. We're still in the adding stamp phase. I'm going to go ahead and check how chat's going. It's doing good. I did see in the chat there was a question about taking groups and then saving them for later to use on other maps. I just want to say that that has not been implemented yet, but that is an extremely popular feature, and we will address that in the future. We just have a lot on our plate right now, and so once we kind of get our plate cleaned up a little bit and we finish some more art and some more features, we'll go ahead and start working on that group. So there is also on our Discord server, you will see a channel called Feature Requests. That is extremely popular. You can go and look for that. You can go into Discord and just search for group, and then there's a list of your search findings, and then look for that particular request. The more thumbs up, the more likes or whatever we get on a feature, that is more likely to be addressed by the team. So remember that. Go to our Discord server, go to the Feature Request channel. If you're new and you haven't joined the Discord yet, make sure first, after you join the Discord, that you go over to the roles channel and you click the Inkarnator role. So that way you have access and visibility to all the channels that are on the server, okay? Let's go ahead and jump back into the map. Thanks for bearing with me there. So we've looked at everything here. Now, you might think to yourself, well, there's no terrain in this negative space here. Like there's no mountains, no snow hills. Yes, that's problematic. How we're going to fix that? We're going to fix that negative space by using textures, and we'll go ahead and address that later. Let's first go ahead and connect all our POIs together using the Path tool. That's the Path tool right here, or you can click P for the Path tool. The Path tool is exactly what it says it is. It's for creating paths, and there are options to change the details or change what the path looks like. And to me, that's super important, because I'm going to go ahead and create a series of different kinds of roads. I'm going to create main carriageways, which I'm going to use a solid line for, and then I'm going to use dashed lines to represent paths or routes that aren't really used by carriages. They're more like on foot to take you to maybe to secret areas. So let's first do a little pro tip here. I recommend that as soon as you have a path tool, that you immediately create a path so you can see what the settings are. So there it is. Now this path is live, so you can go ahead and change its settings and you'll see what it looks like. So if I go and click this width tool, this width slider, you'll see that it's live, changing right now what the path is. And that's great, because then you can decide what you want to work with. So first thing is, I want to get rid of the shadow, and you have to get rid of both of this blur slider bar and this right here. And you're going to see that that's gone completely. Next, you're going to want to decide the opacity. I'm not going to go with a white. I'm going to go with maybe black or maybe even a brown color. So we're going to go play with the color palette here. Pick a color that you want. And we're even going to change the width just a hair and maybe change the opacity. We're going to zoom in and take a look at it. That looks pretty good, I'd say. Okay, so we can go ahead and delete that. It's at the settings we want. The next path that you place will be at those exact same settings you just put. And when it comes to my roads, my main carriageway is always going to connect the cities and the capital. So the capitals and cities are going to be where the main carriageways are going to be. So let's go ahead and start at our main capital right here. And you're going to do just like rivers do. You're going to kind of do this meandering like this when you connect. That meandering is super important. Oopsie, I didn't mean to delete that. We'll undo it. That meandering is super important. Roads are not going to be straight like this. That is super weird. That's going to look odd. It's going to look unrealistic. And so the way to avoid that is to do these S-shaped curves like that. Don't go with straight lines. And the reason why is because there's usually all kinds of land shapes, masses, trees, hills, elevation that gets in the way. And so roads aren't going to be straight. When people are laying down a road, it's super duper hard to make straight roads. So you're only going to see a lot of straight roads when you have a very, very zoomed in, scaled in road. And that's just not applicable here. We'll do straight lines on roads for different types of maps. So for like a world or a regional map like this, you're going to want to go with those nice S-curve, snake-like shapes when making your roads. So I'm going to go ahead and press the space bar, and I'm going to pan up, or we can go down, but I'll pan up first. And you can connect paths. So let's say I want this path to start here, and I'm going to make it go, oopsie, not working here. Not sure why I went to the filter tool. Click, hold, drag, and I'm going to make it go along the coastline, basically, to the next section, the next city, and we're going to look around. See, our next city is up there. So let's connect this, and we're going to also check overlapping. So you're going to want to make sure that the path is behind. So I'll click back one, and you'll see that the path is behind this mountain. It would look kind of odd if the path was in front of the mountain. So you have to make sure it's behind it like that. And I'm not even 100% satisfied with that, but we'll stick with it for now. And I'm going to go ahead and also show right away what our dash lines are going to look like for those. So like if you want to go to this village right here, like this, there's a road that goes to it, like this, that connects it. And these are more like a paths or footpaths or whatever. They're not a main carriageway that are really wide and that can hold multiple carriages going back and forth, going in different directions. And I definitely want paths to go to my temples, because temples are kind of an on-foot thing, secretive, at least in my imagination. And I'm going to make sure to add paths that go to each one. So you're going to S-shape again, S-shape, S-shape. Just keep doing that to each location. And we can add an actual city road that goes along to this one, but for now we'll have it be dashed. And if you accidentally don't like the way that you did it, I'm personally am adding space in between. I don't want it to actually connect because it kind of distorts the shape. So I'm just going to make sure there's some space between the path and the icon that I'm using. And you can even add some paths going into here like this, going into something, into the trees, going around like this, like that. So there are multiple ways to get to places. There are multiple roads. Make sure you do that S shape. That is a bit of a straight line right there. And you can break that up with certain things. If I want, I can go ahead and just put a mountain right here like that, or I can use a hill. It's up to you. Sometimes making a mistake doesn't require doing it over again. It's just thinking about a step that you can use that's quick, that's going to resolve it. So like get used to mistakes, and mistakes can kind of help. So if you, we'll go ahead and address that issue. So when you're working on your map, you're generally not going to be satisfied with it generally till around the end of the map. So if you have a really high expectation for yourself and you're working for a map, you might want to start with lowering your expectation on how good you want your map to be. No map is going to look good within the first 10 minutes, even within the first hour of working on a map. It's going to take some time to add some recognizable features like POIs, roads, mountains, trees, some texturing, until you start to see that the map is developing, that you'll actually begin to kind of like your map a little. So if you don't like your map at first, that's going to be a big turnoff and you're going to want to stop. Don't do that. Hang in there. Keep adding in more material, adding more content on the map until you like it. So don't give up. That's super important. Let's go ahead and zoom out and just take a gander and take a look at what we have so far. And already it's kind of coming together. You see that there's some paths here. This space is filled out so much better. That's so nice. And let's just go ahead and go through all of the different processes in just a one section and one area. So after you've added stamps and you've added your paths, you're going to go on to your texturing, and I'm just going to go through each step and each section. And this is a way that might also make you feel more satisfied. You're happy with one section of the map, and so maybe that's easier for you. You're like, this section looks good, I'm satisfied with it. It kind of sets a standard, and then you can kind of use that as a guide for your next section on your map that's going to be to that quality. So this section already is looking so good and coming along so well, so we'll go ahead and add texture to it. Since we're not going to go through the steps as a whole, we're going to do it in each section. I'll remove that. Let's go straight over to our textures, and I'm going to fill in these negative spaces with a texture of my choice. And I personally really like using alpha textures, and there's some really good ones. So with this, I'm going to go and click show titles because I want to look at what each one is called. And I'm looking at each thing and I'm going to say, there's dirt, there's grass. I'm going to go ahead and choose grass. And at first I'm going to go to advanced settings. I'm going to check the size just to see, to make sure where I want it to be. The default seems great. Now when you apply this texture, these alpha textures, when you first apply them, make sure that you have your softness at 100. Make sure it's at a fairly decent small size. And also, when you apply them on your first swipe, they get darker on your second. So let's go ahead and just do one pass. And you're going to see that they're kind of light and it's kind of hard to see the grass. That's okay. What I'm going to do is going to apply again. So you're going to lift up off of the screen, and then you're going to go ahead and click and then do it again, and you'll see that some sections it's going to get darker. And instead of making this whole thing dark like that, just pick certain sections here and there, click here and there to be dark, and the other sections to be light. And that kind of creates a little bit of contrast, and it doesn't create this uniform. So you have these three sections that are dark, and you can even put a POI there if you want, or some trees. It's up to you. So you zoom out and you take a look. That negative space has been filled in with the texture. It looks kind of nice. And we can do that all throughout this section using different textures or using the same one. I personally like this. I'm going to press the B key to remove that, and I'm just going to fill in these negative sections here with a little bit of that texture here and there. Like this. And hopefully once you've applied all these steps, you'll be able to refine that process, and you'll be able to go through and get this done quickly. Again, this video is not going to reflect how long a map actually takes. I'm going to be demoing and showcasing a lot of different tools, so this is not an accurate representation of the time that it takes to make a map. So when you're making your map, you're not going to be demoing, you're not going to be streaming, you're not going to have to worry about the lag of that, so it's going to go by so much quicker than the actual time of this map or this stream. So keep that in mind. Zoom out, take a look. We're at 58 changes. I think we can keep going. And we have about 55 minutes left. I'm not so sure that I'll be able to finish this map in that amount of time. Hopefully we can, so we can have a new map in the next stream. If not, we'll continue this one. Let's take a look. We're zooming in. Things are looking good. Just pick some other spots. And I want to do that. Here, there. Okay. And we're going to put some here in this little glade right here. And some here. Now we might say that we want this area to be something a bit different. First, let's go ahead and add our paths to this section. This one's pretty dang close to done. We might want to consider adding a tree here and there first. Just add one here and there to kind of break up the mountains. I personally like to put trees over the line work where the base of the mountain is. This is just something that I personally like to do. It might not work for everybody, but I personally think that it looks kind of nice. I'm just going to add some here and there, and we might even want to put a temple in there, and let's say that it's not going to be on top. We're going to put the temple just right in the center on the ground, and we'll make sure to add a path that works. It's already at the dash. That's great. And we're going to go ahead and put it in through here, going through here and into here like that, and make sure that it's the right layer. It's behind. Perfect. Awesome. So I'd say let's just go ahead and add one more temple, just kind of random one, and we're going to put it over by the sea, and we're going to add a little path going to it. Bingo. Okay. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and save the changes. I'm going to go check out the chat, make sure if everything's doing okay. Okay. I'm seeing some questions about rivers in the chat, so let's go ahead and break down rivers. We're going to go ahead and do it in this section right here. So let's start with how rivers work, how they flow. Thank you, Philip, in chat for covering those questions for me. I appreciate it. This is a good time to cover it, if not any other time. Let's go and get started with that. So rivers, where do they start? Rivers start in the mountains. That's called their headwaters, okay? So rivers flow from the mountains and they go south or downhill and they flow out to the ocean. So there are two ways to do rivers, and these two ways are highly dependent on scale, okay? So the first one is using your subtract mode of the mask tool with the smallest setting. Make sure you use this circle brush. You don't want to use your edgy brush. That's going to be one heck of a wonky river, and you're going to want to make sure it's small. And we're going to go ahead and apply it, and we're going to look and see how it works. So first, let's pick where we want a river to come from. We're going to pick one here, and you're going to make sure that it meanders a lot and it goes out. Now, under the current mask settings, you'll notice that this river just looks all brown. So how do we fix that issue? First, we go to advanced settings under the mask tool. Okay, you press M. You're going to look at your stroke, and you're going to go ahead and click down the arrow key. And what we're doing is we're going to drop down the size of the stroke to where you can actually see the river, like that. And as you can see, I can see the river just fine. Now that is the smallest that a river can get. There's no smaller size than that. So if this is too big for your world, you're going to have to go with step 2, another process, which is using the path tool. Now when you're going to use the path tool, you're going to have to think about a couple things. You're going to have to think about blend modes. So let's go ahead and get rid of that river that I have right here. We'll zoom out and take a look. It is rather big, and if you're not satisfied with that, that's fine. Let's go ahead and go to our this tool, and let's just go ahead and fill it in. We'll go with add, and we're just going to fill it in, and we're going to do that same thing only with a path. Okay, so you got your path tool, and we're just going to stick with the current settings. That's fine. We're going to play with settings once we've applied a river. So the river's here, and it's going like this, kind of meandering. That doesn't look right, so we'll change that. Let's change our meandering, and we're going to have it connect to right there. So now, since we're not really adding a lot of color, there's no real reason to change the color. Honestly, I think this brown looks fine, but you can change colors if you want. I'll just show you how to do that. Right here, you'll see color, and you've got a blue river like that. Now, if you are going to change the color of your river, if you're going to go with that color, then you have to think about what the color of the BG is going to be. That's your ocean. So if you're going with this color blue, then you want to go to your catalog and think very carefully about what textures you're going to use. I'm going to go ahead and pick a color that I want. I'm going to go with political blue, and I'm going to apply it to the background. I'm going to turn the softness off, and I'm just going to put it right where the mouth of the river is. The mouth is where it hits the ocean, and we're going to apply it. And I'm going to look and say, okay, this texture and this color do not work well. So there are two options. You can change the texture to fit the path, or you can change the path to fit the color of the texture. I'm going to go with this because this is a lot easier, and we're going to go through the colors that gets relatively close, and that right there looks about right. Now, if you're going to do that, the whole background is going to have to be blue, the whole ocean. So we're going to click that texture. We're going to make sure the BG is selected and the rectangular tool. Pro tip, fastest way to fill a layer is to just use the rectangular shape, or click apply or click enter. Make sure absolutely you have the right layer selected. If it's FG, it's going to make all that land blue, so don't do that. Click BG, click apply, or click the enter button, and then boom, you've got the entire canvas covered in that color that you want. And we probably will change maybe even this color, but for now we'll stick with it. I hope that in the chat that you understand now how that works. And since we've done it, let's go ahead and stick with that same method. We're going to use the path tool for all our future rivers. So let's go ahead and make some more rivers. Let's go ahead and start them in the mountains. Oopsie, that's kind of a straight line there. Start them in the mountains and have them meander out to the sea. Okay. Oopsie. I didn't mean to press delete. I meant to press escape because I want to unselect that path. Okay. There we go. So we've got a river there, and we're going to continue doing that with all of our mountains. Oh, and we also are going to make some lakes, so let's go do that. And we're going to use the subtract mode of the mask tool, and let's just use the smallest brush for now and just take a look and see how that looks. Okay, that's about right. Okay, so lakes. This is not a overall how lakes and rivers work, but lakes, a lot of them are in the mountains, at the base of mountains. That is where they are because lakes are formed from two sources. Mostly it's going to be rainfall and snowmelt. Snowmelt comes from the mountains and it causes runoff. That runoff goes down the mountain and then collects, creating a river or a lake or both. So you have a lake. That lake can also have a river that goes out to the ocean. So let's go ahead and first make our lake. And let's just say that we want the lake to be, let's do something different. Let's just say that our temple is going to be at this lake. Now that size is not big enough, so let's go up a couple. And we're going to make this a lake temple. Okay, and then we're going to take our path tool and we're going to have it to where there is a river running, let's say along this path. Oopsie, that is the wrong one. Let's go back, select that path so I have those same settings, and this river basically goes to it. There we go, and you're going to be following along that river out to this lake right here. Perfect. So we have a lake temple. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and add a couple more lakes, and we don't want them to be super massive because of the scale. So I'll just make a few small little lakes here and there. We're going to create one right here. And I'm just going to have the lore behind this be that these are just kind of like a wetland. This is all just created by rainfall. That's all. There's no river connecting these. These technically are created by just rainfall, and that's it. And I'm making them small here and there. And I also want to make sure the shapes aren't too recognizable, kind of odd shapes. There we go. Being completely globular doesn't look realistic, so you might have to play with the shape. Okay, so you have some small lakes right here that were created by rainfall. There's no rivers involved. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and add in some more stuff in here, and that section will be finished, and we can go to the next section. Okay, let's go ahead and add one lake up here. And I'm gonna put it along this forest here. So I'm gonna make sure to overlap so it's just behind like this. And there is gonna be no river or anything going to that, and that might not look good. Let's zoom in, zoom out. Yeah, that doesn't look good, so we won't add it there. I think that space is fine. Okay, you have some rivers here, some lakes. Okay, and we can move on to this next section, and I'm gonna go ahead and apply an entirely different texture. There's a dirt texture here that I like, and I'm thinking that this whole section right here is gonna be kind of either waste or kind of rugged, and we're gonna wanna take a look. Dirt, look at the size. Okay, and there's also some cracked ground that might work well. Let's look at that one. Just want to see what it looks like. This preview is extremely difficult to see, unfortunately. Okay, we're gonna make sure the right ground, right layer is selected, foreground, and then we're gonna apply large brush. I'm just gonna do one right now, just kind of see what it looks like. Super hard to see, so we're gonna have to do it several times. There we go. Okay, that looks a little better. And actually, I want my softness up. Otherwise, that's gonna look super weird. Okay. So consider this a kind of wasteland. Not entirely. There are some hills, some elevation, and some trees over here close to the ocean. So that's okay. And I am going to make it to where the texture is darkest, where there is these POIs. And we can add in some interesting topography here as well. You do not have to do this. This is going to lengthen the video, but it is fun to add some jagged landscape. And I do believe there are these awesome jagged cliffs or jagged rocks. These are fantastic. Utterly recommend these. I like to put these along my coastline. They look so good. Kind of creates this shattered coast look. So I'm just going to apply them here and there. It's set to random. Let's go ahead and turn random off. I'm going to be a little more selective. I'm going to go ahead and place some of the same stamp just here and there, and then I can go ahead and add other stamps to break that up. Select that one. Ooh, I think I need to save and refresh the page. My computer is lagging. So let's go ahead and save those changes and we'll refresh. Got your jagged cliffs there. I'll save. All right, it is saved. I'm going to refresh. I'm just going to refresh the page a few times. We'll open back up the map. I do hope that the people in the chat did catch the section on using the path tool for rivers. And remember to make sure that you match whatever the color of the path is with whatever you want your color of your ocean to be. Really hope you caught that. And there's about 40 minutes remaining in this stream, and so we're going to try to tidy up this last section, this section right here, and then we'll finish up this section probably in the next stream. That, again, for those who are new, September 6th of next month, that's going to be the next stream, so we'll continue that. Don't forget that on our Discord server, we also have a stream channel where we do streams. I do streams every single Wednesday of every single week. And if I don't, I'll make sure to let people know in advance. This next stream that's coming up on Discord this Wednesday, 2 days from now, is going to be on how to use the watercolor cities to make castles. And we're going to be grouping those and then placing those on our map. So if you're curious on how to make castles in the watercolor cities, make sure that you go ahead and check out that stream this Wednesday, at 10 a.m. PDT, that's Pacific Daylight Time, okay? And that's going to be, I believe that is the 5th of this month. All right, so we've saved, we've refreshed, the lag has gone away, that's great. Again, Google Chrome limits how much megabytes that you have per tab, so that can cause some issues. So make sure after a certain number of saves and changes that you refresh the page to avoid that. Okay, let's go back to where we were and let's continue adding this. And I'm going to go ahead and change the size of some of these stamps. I'm going to press the S key to get rid of stamps. And we're going to change the size so that there's some big stamps. Looks like it's set to random again because I saved and refreshed. So let's go ahead and turn off that random. And I'm going to cycle through the stamps that I want. That's a little bit quicker. And we're going to go ahead and start placing some of these where you want them. This is going to be our jagged coast. We can even label it that. Oh, and we'll get to labeling later. That will be in the next stream because we don't need to label until you actually put down all your locations and everything. That's when you decide to label. I recommend saving that for near the end. The last step is really applying filters, and we'll make sure to cover that as well. I'll make sure that in the video, when this video gets uploaded and it's on the YouTube channel, that I'm going to make sure that there are sections so that you can click on the time bar to each section. You can just jump right to it, so you don't have to watch the whole video to get all the insights, unless you want to, of course. Okay, let's go ahead and add some final stamps on here to add for our jagged coast. You can even rotate them a bit if you need to. Okay, getting there. Ooh, that doesn't look good. We'll go with a different one instead. Let's click this last one. Okay, all right, so there's kind of our jagged coast. We'll just add some smaller ones. Just a teeny bit, have them overlap just a hair. Okay, so we've got kind of our jagged coast going on there. Let's go ahead and do our paths. So we're going to go ahead and click the path that I want to use, and we're going to click a path that's going to snake through here like this and take us to this location. Pressing the escape button to unselect it, and you're doing those S shapes. I can tell you if you're using a mouse, I am using a pen, but if you're using a mouse, yes, this will be difficult. S curves are extremely difficult. In my mind, I'll go ahead and use a mouse, and you'll see that it's just a little bit harder, but you get the general idea. You want those curves so it doesn't look like the roads are too straight, and you've kind of connected that. And I also like to have trees and some stamps to overlap some of the path, so make sure that that is on the right layer. As you can see, it's one below, so we're going to put it up a layer, so that way you can't see the path behind it. And you're just going to add just some trees here and there, and we can actually use a different tree too, because this is kind of more of a barren area, though you can have different types of trees. That's up to you. Let's try using a dead tree, since this is kind of a barren area. And I'm going to make them slightly bigger. They're a little bit more noticeable. There's a lot of details, a little more details, a little more branch work. So I'll be sure to just make them just a tad bit bigger. We're going to add them here and there. And make sure that, again, you change the size. I like to make little groupings, like little groups of 3. And then you can go ahead and just take it down to be so much smaller and just add them here and there like we were doing with the trees earlier. So you're just kind of repeating that process. And there's not much water in this kind of region, so there's no point in really adding any rivers or lakes here. I guess you could add a small lake if you wanted around here somewhere, or a river. There's no real mountains, so this area doesn't really have that. But we will add a lake or a river going to the mountains. And then that way we can also add some bridge stamps, bridge icons. Those are really nice. So we're going to have the river start here like this, and it's going to kind of meander around through here and kind of go here like that. And at this point we're also going to want to create some bridges. So let's go ahead and delete this path here, and we'll delete this path right here. And first let's go ahead and look for a bridge icon. So we're going to click open here, and you're going to see some bridges here. Let's go ahead and show all. Now I'm going to go with a more simple bridge, nothing huge. And we're going to put one right here like this. And it should have a clipping mask on it, so it will go over the path. Make sure that it's over that. And we might even want to move this over just a hair. And we're going to create another bridge. Oopsie, right here, my bad. Let's say that bridge just goes directly to that town. That's fine. Make sure. Oops, and I don't think that is above, so let's go up 1. There we go. And we can go back to our path tool, and we can go do that again. Here's our road going to this bridge. There we go. And then this one going to this one. And then also there should be a path leading to that city right there. Okay, let's zoom out, take a look. We do have the main carriageways, we have the paths. That looks good so far. And let's go ahead and add a grass texture. Make sure this is right. And we're going to add some grass texture closest to the shoreline. We might want to change mask effects for sure, so we will do that later. That might conflict with our paths, so that requires perhaps a different method like painting. So we'll take a look later in the video. I'm just going to add a little bit of grassland here along the edge, a little bit here and there, just to kind of break up the texture so it's not that same cracked ground. We don't want it to be monotonous if you're concerned about that. If not, that's okay. Okay. And we are going to add some ship lanes as well. We'll make sure to add that in there. First, let's save. Let's check our time, 30 minutes. And we'll also zoom out and take a closer look. Yeah, it looks good so far. We're going to save. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat. Oopsie. I made a mistake, by the way. I said Wednesday the 5th. I meant to say Wednesday the 4th. Thank you for correcting me there, Philip. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and refresh the page as well. We'll go ahead and give a minute to load up. And we'll continue working on this Parchment regional map. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat, and we'll go ahead and see if there's anybody asking any questions that I can help with. Okay. All right. Doing good so far. And For those of you who are watching, please leave comments in the description below if you also have requests, or there's something that you want to see in a future video, or if you want to see, or in future streams, or even videos. Right now I'm currently working on a video. It's going to be an overview of the brush tool. I've already given some minor overview in this, but that video will be specific to understand how to break down, how to use and demo that tool. So look forward, keep your eyes peeled and look forward to that video. Let's continue this section right here. And so far, we're looking good. I'm liking the way that the bridges turned out, except for this looks like a different size from this one. This one's at 50, that one's at 40. Let's fix that real quick. You're going to want to make sure that there is a continuity. Oopsie, that was 4. That's not going to help. You're going to want a continuity in size. So if you have the same stamp, something like a bridge or even a city, make sure they're the same size. Don't make that mistake. So these two bridges are the same size again. That's good. And this area is looking close to done. There are some negative spaces that I'm not entirely satisfied with. So you can add in some things to break that up. Like you can add maybe a series of hills, just 1 or 2 here and there. Actually, it kind of makes more sense to put it in that green area, that grassy area. So we'll put it there, and we'll add just a few trees like that. And it's okay if the grass texture is overlapping the hills. That is not a problem. I actually kind of like a little bit of texture on it. That's kind of nice. So that's how you take care of negative areas. You can even put in a temple there, which is probably not a bad idea. We'll go ahead and put a temple on this hill right here. And we'll make sure to put a path there. But that can be it could be any kind of thing. You could have it be a ruin. You could have it be like a non-race affiliated POI. Let's go ahead and make sure to select this path. So whatever it is you want it to be. And we're going to create this little windy path going right to it. Perfect. So that's really the best way to kind of address negative areas, negative spaces. I do recommend that you don't fill in every single negative space with something, because those negative spaces like this are what give a definition to spaces that have a lot of stamps on it. Those open spaces are normal. You're going to find that in real life, so you'd find some negative spaces also on your map. So, and if it's just too much negative space, then you can proceed by adding a POI, adding just some hills or trees or whatever it is you want to kind of fill in that negative space. This one looks pretty good to me. I'm not going to worry about adding any more to this. Maybe it'll come to me later to add more, but for now that looks okay. Let's go ahead and move on to this section right here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a river. So I want to make sure that I have the right path selected. That's this one. That's perfect. We're going to have a river go through here and go out to here. So let's go ahead and pick a section. I want it to be here, and we're going to have it travel a long way. And we're even going to connect some other rivers to it. I haven't done that with these other rivers, and I should. So I'm going to go ahead and add smaller ones by changing my width down. Let's go to 7. That's pretty small. And now I'm going to connect some rivers into this one. And as you notice that these are smaller. Actually, that doesn't work. Let's connect it here. And we'll add some smaller ones coming in and kind of connecting into here, and even some more connecting to there. So now you have that. And we should do the same to some of these, because there will be some smaller streams that do connect to create this larger river. So we'll do that to a couple, even add one here behind this mountain maybe, and we'll do it to this one as well. And I am noticing some overlap with this, so let's push that down so that this is not covering up that path. And I'm going to have to change the size again because I just selected that path. And let's go even smaller still. Let's have a path that goes in and connects into this one, and even have one that goes through here and connects like that if you want. It just depends. So now we've added a little more realism to that. Let's even add one river that connects it here. Okay. All right, so that looks good so far. We've got a main river, we've got our little rivers connecting these into here, and we might even want to consider creating what's called a river delta. And for those of you who don't know what a river delta is, it's basically to where there's enough land, basically to where you're going to have just a series of kind of like islands. So I'll pretty much just show you what the delta kind of looks like. You're going to see a series of branches of the river connecting out like this, branching out, going out to the ocean like this. And a river delta looks great, so I definitely recommend adding a couple. We'll add them in here, maybe even add another one right here. Looking good so far. All right, we're going to call that good. We're going to zoom out and take a look. So there's our river delta. Looks good so far. Okay. Let's go ahead and see where that is. That looks good. And we're going to go ahead now and make some lakes as well. We're going to go back to the subtract. Again, make sure to use that circle shape. Make it small. We're going to go with 3 for now. And I'm thinking I'm probably going to add a lake in here. And it's probably going to come from a mountain, more than likely. It could come from here and go into here. Or I can add a lake into here, so it really just depends. I do want some water from my main capital, so I might add a series of little rivers, or I'm sorry, lakes, and they can be connected by rivers, that's fine. But some kind of water source for this capital would be a good idea. We'll go down even smaller, add some little tiny little there. Okay. Oops, missed a spot there. Okay, so there's some water that's available to that. And we're going to go back to our river. And what we're going to do is put one river that's going to meander out through here. And it's going to go basically to these lakes here. And what we can do is try to maybe connect them all together instead of using a path tool. So connect like that, and then connect this one like this. And in another video, I'll show you guys how to make an oxbow lake. So that's really cool, but that's something that should be probably be made on a more upscale map. It's hard to make a oxbow lake with this scale, so we'll show that one in another video. And make sure you delete those paths that I put there. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So that's kind of that, and you can even have that go out to the ocean, or it can just stay here. That's fine. Let's go ahead and get rid of that spot right there. All right, kind of a funky looking lake, but at least it's close. And now we're going to go ahead and put our paths together, and we want our main route. Let's go ahead and make sure that I have this selected right. Oopsie, I did not mean to change that one. I think that's the one I want. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and connect this stuff together. So I'm going to have a main route that goes from here into here. Oopsie, there's this kind of a straight line there. We don't want that. So I'll have to fix that. Oopsie, my path tool is wigging out a bit. Okay. All right, and we can go ahead and switch over and start making our paths to everything. And I want to think about also setting up some bridges that I had before. Just going to go ahead and select this one. And I'm going to go ahead and put my bridges up real quick so that they can go to different locations. There's going to be one here. And we want to put one here. Perfect. Okay, now we can add our path. make sure I got the right one selected. We'll do that, those settings. Okay, and we're going to have this path just follow along this river. Okay, and we're going to have it go out to this here, or there's a crossroad that kind of goes to this like that, and we're going to keep adding more and more paths connecting all of our POIs together. Let's kind of twist and turn around. Let's take a look here. Another one goes through this mountain here. To there. Okay. And we'll keep adding more paths and then deal with that negative space provided by the path. Okay. Okay. Make sure that every spot is basically connected through roads. All right, we're running out of time, 20 minutes pretty much, a little under that. And we'll probably have to finish this later, but I'll get as much done as possible. And I highly recommend that if you haven't joined our Discord server, that you do, because there's more than just me who can help you. There are so many awesome users in our Discord community who are more than willing to help you. And they're really kind and they're really helpful. They're not just going to knock your work. They're going to be so helpful. They're going to help you out. So ask questions, join the Discord server, make sure that you do. If you go on our site, you will see that there is a link at the top that goes to our Discord server. If you haven't joined yet, I highly recommend you do. You're going to find a wonderful community there who is so wonderful and going to be so willing to help you out. All right, so we got a path that goes through the mountains here, like this, goes out the back, and then kind of leads to this little temple right here. And we're still connecting everything together. So far, so good. And I say we connect these two as well. Again, just kind of stay along the coastline. Okay, and we want to continue connecting all our pieces. This is a capital, so we'll make sure to make a main carriageway for that. And let's just have this go through a treacherous mountain pass. Okay, we continue. All right, so far, so good. Let's make our main carriageway that kind of, let's say we want to kind of connect these two capitals, I would say would be the best bet. So let's go ahead and make this path windy. It's going through like this. That road's basically going to connect into this road like that. So we've got that main road, and then we're going to go ahead and just create some roads that lead up into the mountains and go to this location, this temple here, or you can skip all that and just go around this way. Sometimes more than one route to a location is good. Okay, that's looking good so far. We're at 100 changes. Let's save it. Okay. Now that we're saved, 15 minutes remaining. Let's take a look what we got so far. It's always good to zoom out, take a close look, see what you got. And we're going to follow through with the same methods that we've been using. We want to connect some more of the POIs, and then we want to fill in those negative spaces left in between the stamps and the paths, like these little areas here, with a texture of our choice. I love using the alphas, so those are the best one to use. Let's go ahead and connect this one right here. And we're going to want to connect a couple others so that there's more than one way to get to something. And let's also connect this route here with this one. There we go. And we're going to add a couple more rivers as well, I think. That would be nice. So make sure that I have the right river selected, right path selected, and we're going to have a river that goes through here, and we're going to break up some of this negative space here by adding a river. And again, you want to do the meandering. I know I repeat this a lot, but you definitely want your rivers to be S-shaped. You want them to meander a lot because they look less realistic when you don't. Okay, and we're going to have a couple that are going to branch out as well and connect. Like that, and we can even have a couple that branch out here like this, just a few, not too many. Okay, I know I kind of made an error right there, so we'll look at that. Okay, let's delete this path. Let's go ahead and add real quickly our bridges. So we're going to add one there, and we can probably add one there as well. Okay. Oh, the right path is selected. So this is going to connect like this, and then go to this one like this, and we'll also put another one right here like this, and we're going to have it connect into this main path there. Okay, so now you've got your bridges, you've got a lot of your stuff connected together, which is perfect. Make sure all the POIs are connected on this mass here, so you've got your paths, your main carriageway, you've got your rivers, and we can even add in a couple lakes, and then by the time I'm done with all that, it will be time to conclude the stream. Okay, we're just going to add a few lakes and rivers. I'm going to add one here. It's a nice little place to have one, and we can even add a river there to explain where that water source comes from. Okay, and then we're going to take a look what other options we have, and we're going to want to put some more lakes. Let's go ahead and delete some stuff to do that. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to move these around, and then we're going to add just a little lake right here, and maybe put it behind, so it's a little bit behind it. That's nice. You might want to even add some trees if you should desire there. Oops, add that. Okay, and we're going to go back. Let's go ahead and select our river. Okay, and make sure that our river is coming down. It's filling up that one. And where does this water source come from? We'll put it up here. And we can even put a couple there if you want. That's okay. Let's see here. Let's go with a smaller one. And we can have some going in through here like that. Add a couple in through here like that. Okay. And again, I definitely recommend adding some trees to overlap the front side like this. There are generally trees growing around lakes, at least all the ones that I see. And again, these trees need to be changed to a layer above. Remember that these paths are at layer 2, so keep that part in mind. Okay, make sure that's up a layer. There we go, and all these trees as well need to be at layer 2. Oops. There we go, okay. And I'm going to select the tree, go to layer 2. There we go, okay. And we can go ahead and place these in front, some of them in front of your lakes, and also do it to some of your paths as well. Don't forget, can't stress enough how important overlap is. You definitely want to have some layering. That's going to create your depth, okay? Definitely put them along your rivers. And we're going to make sure that that is a layer above these. Okay. And again, overlap. We're overlapping just a bit. Add a cluster of trees here, some here. Okay. And we're going to look at our other lakes. Take a look. Add some trees. Okay. 107 changes. So you get the general formula. You get the general idea so far. There is a kind of order of operation. We're going to review that real quickly. We've only got 10 minutes left. One, start with your landmasses. Make one large shape. After you've created that large shape, you're going to do 2 to 3 passes with a smaller brush with a subtract mode. And you're going to go around your edges like this, and you're going to break up your landmasses. This large glob that was here, break it up into smaller pieces. Once you have these smaller pieces, you can go in with an even smaller brush size and then just break up those coastlines. Here, we will, in the next video, break up these coastlines so they're a little less jagged as they are. And we'll go ahead and add some extra details around there with our final pass that's coming up. So now after you've added your landmasses, you'll feel satisfied with the current shapes. You don't have to worry about the very fine details of the coastlines until the end or near the end, unless you want to, because then you're going to, some of your stamps might define some of your landmass shapes. So you're going to want to wait to do that final pass closer to the end. So once you've added all that, it depends whether you're going with biomes or if you're going to have a lot of color. If you're just doing a plain parchment stamp and you're not interested in doing all this texturing with different colors and textures, then you don't have to worry about doing your biomes, your texturing for biomes. You just have to worry about just picking the proper stamps. When you move to the stamp part, you're going to want to do mountains. Add your mountain ranges. And there's lots of different ways to decide where you want your mountain ranges to be. There's realistic, and that might cover plate tectonics, how continents clash together and pushed land up to create mountains. You could do that by using the path tool and kind of creating a line that represents where that would be. So for example, like you want to say I want a mountain range here, then you're going to use this path right here. Let's go with a color that's easily visible. That's kind of hard to see. And you're going to say that this right here is going to be where your mountain range is going to be. So you would just use, let's say, a mountain like this, make sure and you just go like this across. So you're using it as a guide. So you can do that. That's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and just undo those 2 changes. And the reason why you use your mountains, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the stream, for those of you who missed it, you do your mountains first because you're going to scale, use it as a guide to scale for the rest of your stamps. So put your mountains down first, and that does include dunes, mesas, karsts, any major large land feature like a mountain. You're going to want to place all of those first so you have your scale. And then once you've done that, you can start working on foothills, which are going to be at the base of mountains. And then from there you can add your forests. Lots of forests grow at the base of mountains because that's where a lot of the fresh water comes from, is from the headwaters that are in the mountains, which segues to the next step in the process. You can start adding your POIs, or you can add your rivers. It depends which step you have first. If you've planned out your whole map in advance and you know where your lakes are going to be and everything, go ahead and add your lakes, then go ahead and add your rivers, and make sure that those lakes are connected with rivers from the headwaters or rivers that come from the mountains, okay? So after you've added rivers and you've added lakes, you can go ahead and adding your POIs and paths. These don't have to be in this order. It just depends. That order works for me. Once you've added paths, then you can start texturing, add in your alphas or whatever texture you want to add, even if it's color, and just start filling in those negative spaces. Again, those negative spaces are spaces like this, where there's just absolutely nothing going on. And so you don't need to fill in all those negative spaces with POIs and landscape. So just use an alpha texture like we used here, this grass texture and this cracked ground. You're going to fill in those spaces, and in the next video we'll move on to the next steps that are going to be going on, which means we want to finish the current steps for the areas, and then we want to move on to whether we want to texture the ocean to have depth, if you want to have deeper water, or if you want to blend in the stamps more with the ground texture that we currently have. And then we're also going to label, and we're going to add filters. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the chat real quick. I'm going to save, jump into the chat, and talk with anybody if they have any questions. I want to give a shout out to Philip for checking it, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Philip. So far, we've just got a couple people in chat, so there's not too many. I'm going to need for people to go ahead and to remember to go into the group, or I'm sorry, into the description below, and please leave any comments that you might have for what you want to be in future videos, future streams, things like that. I'm going to need that information so that I know what to make for you guys in the future, because we listen to our users, we listen to what they want, and we provide, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and conclude the stream. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of you guys so much, and don't forget to join our Discord, okay? Hopefully I can see you guys there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.